Welcome back, everyone. Today we will be reading Chapter 12, so let's get into it. Chapter 12, Demon Xanth. "This way," Humphrey said. Bink kept his sword drawn as he followed the magician. Jewel walked silently behind him, carrying the golem. "Incidentally," Humphrey said, "Crombie was not deceiving you. The antidote you seek does lie in the direction of the lake, but beyond it. The coral could enable you to obtain it, if things work out." "I have no interest in bribes from the enemy," Bink said curtly. "You don't?" Jewel asked. "You don't want the antidote?" "Sorry, I didn't mean I intended to renege," Bink told her. "It's a matter of principle. I can't let the enemy subvert me, even though I do not wish to burden you with my love for any longer than—" "It's no burden, Bink," she said. "I never saw anything so brave as—" "But since the antidote is evidently out of reach, there is no point in keeping you. I'm sorry I inconvenienced you for nothing. You are free to go now." She caught at his arm. Bink automatically moved his sword out of the way. Bink yielded to his desire at last and kissed her. To his surprise, she returned the kiss emphatically. The scent of yellow roses surrounded them. Then he pushed her gently away. "Take good care of yourself, nymph. This sort of adventure is not for you. I would like to believe that you are safe and happy with your gems and your job, always." "Bink, I can't go." "You have to go. Here, there's only horror and danger, and I have no right to subject you to it. You must depart without discovering the source of magic, so that you will have no enemy." Now she smelled of pine trees on a hot day, all pungent and fresh and mildly intoxicating. The elixir had cured her hoarseness, too, and had eased the non-sleep shadows under her eyes. She was as lovely as she had been the moment he first saw her. "You have no right to send me away either," she said. Humphrey moved. Bink's sword leaped up warningly. Jewel backed off, frightened again. "Have no concern," the magician said. "We approach the source of magic." Bink, wary, hardly dared believe it. "I see nothing special." "See this rock?" Humphrey asked, pointing. "It is the magic rock, slowly moving up, leaking through to the surface after hundreds of years, squeezing through a fault in the regular strata. Above, it becomes magic dust, part of the natural or magical conversion of the land's crust." He pointed down. "Below is where it becomes charged, the source of magic." "Yes, but how is it charged with magic?" Bink demanded. "Why has the coral so adamantly opposed my approach?" "You will soon know." The magician showed the way to a natural curving tunnel ramp that led down. "Feel the intensifying strength of magic here? The most minor talent looms like that of a magician, but all talents are largely nullified by the ambiance. It is as if magic does not exist paradoxically, because it cannot be differentiated properly." Bink could not make much sense of that. He continued on down, alert for further betrayal, conscious of the pressure of magic all about him. If a lightning bug made its little spark here, there would be a blast sufficient to blow the top off the mountain. They were certainly approaching the source, but was this also a trap? The ramp debouched into an enormous cave, whose far wall was carved into the shape of a giant demon face. "The demon Xanth, the source of magic," Humphrey said simply. "This statue? This mere mask?" Bink asked incredulously. What joke is this? Hardly a joke, Bink. Without this demon, our land would be just like Mundania, a land without magic. And this is all you have to show me? How do you expect me to believe it? I don't expect that. You have to listen to the rationale. Only then can you grasp the immense significance of what you see and appreciate the incalculable peril your presence here means to our society. Bink shook his head with resignation. I said I'd listen. I'll listen, but I don't guarantee to believe your story. You cannot fail to believe, Humphrey said. But whether you accept, that is the gamble. The information comes in this manner. We shall walk about this chamber, intercepting a few of the magic vortexes of the demon's thoughts. Then we will understand. I don't want any more magic experience, Bink protested. All I want to know is the nature of the source. You shall, Humphrey said. Just walk with me, that is all. There is no other way. He stepped forward. Still suspicious, Bink paced him, for he did not want to let the magician get beyond the immediate reach of his sword. Suddenly, he felt giddy. It was as if he were falling, but his feet were firm. He paused, bracing himself against he knew not what. Another siege of madness? If that were the trap. He saw stars. Not the paltry motes of the normal night sky, but monstrous and monstrously strange balls of flaming yet unburning substance, of gas more dense than rock, and tides without water. They were so far apart that a dragon could not have flown from one to another in its lifetime, and so numerous that a man could not count them all in his lifetime. Yet all were visible at once. Between these magically huge, small, distant, close, unbelievable certainties flew the omnipotent demons, touching a small, enormous star here to make it flicker, a large, tiny one there to make it glow red, and upon occasion puffing one into the blinding flash of a nova. The realm of the stars was the demon's playground. The vision faded. Bink looked dazedly around at the cave, and the tremendous still face of the demon. You stepped out of that particular thought vortex, Humphrey explained. Each one is extremely narrow, though deep. Yes, Bink agreed. He took another step and faced a lovely she-demon with eyes as deep as the vortex of the fiends and hair that spread out like the tail of a comet. She was not precisely female, for the demons had no reproduction, and therefore no sex unless they wanted it for entertainment. They were eternal. They had always existed and always could exist, as long as there was any point in existence. But for variety at times, they played with variations of sex and assumed the aspect of male, female, it male, he male, she male, neuter male, and anonymale. At the moment, she was close enough to a category to be viewed as such, and it was not a he category. She said, formulating a concept so vastly spacious as to fail to register upon Bink's comprehension. Yet her portent was so significant it moved him profoundly. He felt a suddenly compelling urgency to... But such a thing would have been inexpressively obscene in human terms, had it been possible or even conceivable. She was not, after all, closest in category to female. Bink emerged from the thought eddy and saw Jewel standing transfixed, meshed in a different current. Her lips were parted, her bosom heaving. What was she experiencing? Bink suffered a quadruple-level reaction, horror that she should be subjected to any thought as crudely and sophisticatedly compelling as the one he had just experienced, for she was an innocent nymph. Jealousy that she should react so raptly to something other than himself, especially if it were as suggestive a notion as the one he had absorbed. Guilt about feeling that way about a nymph he could not really have, though he would not have wished the concept on the one he did have. An intense curiosity. Suppose an intimate made an offer, an it-male made an offer. Oh, horrible. Yet so tempting, too. But Humphrey was moving, and Bink had to move too. He stepped into an eternal memory so long that it resembled a magic highway extending into infinity both ways. The line of sight, though sight was not precisely the sense employed, to the past disappeared into a far, far distant flash. The demon universe had begun in an explosion and ended in another, and the whole of time and matter was the mere hiatus between these bangs, which two bangs were in turn only aspects of the same one. Obviously, this was a completely alien universe from Bink's own. Yet, in the throes of this flux of relevant meaninglessness, it became believable. A super magic framework for the super magical demons. Bink emerged from the thought. But what do the demons have to do with the source of the magic of Xanth? He demanded plaintively. Then he entered a new flux, a complex one. If we cooperate, we can enlarge our A. The pseudo-female demon communicated seductively. At least this was as much as Bink could grasp of her import. That had levels and resonances and symbolisms as myriad as the stars, and as intense and diffuse and confusing. My formula is E-A divided by R to the 10th. Yours, Z to the A divided by the nth. Our A's match. Ah, yes, it was a good offer, considering the situation, since their remaining elements differed, making them non-competitive. Not on your existence, another protested. Enlarge our E, not our A. It was D, A divided by A to the 10th. Who stood to be diminished by the enlarging A? Enlarge both D and E, another suggested. It was D, E divided by P. D, E divided by A, agreed instantly. And so did E, A divided by R. For she would benefit to a certain degree, too. But this left X, A divided by N, out. Reduce our N, T, E divided by nth, recommended, and this appealed to X, A divided by nth. But T, E divided by nth was also dealing with the E razors, and that gave T, E divided by nth disproportionate gain for the contract. All deals fell through for no benefit. Bink emerged, his comprehension struggling. The names were formulae? The letters were values? What was going on? Ah, you have seen it, Humphrey said. The demons have no names, only point scores. Variable inputs are substituted, affecting the numeric values, though they are not really numbers, but degrees of concept with gravity and charm and luminosity and other dimensions we can hardly grasp. The running score is paramount. That explanation only furthered the mystery. The demon Xanth is only a score in a game? The demon, whose scoring formula is XA to the divided by nth. 3 variables and a class exponent, as nearly as we can understand it, the magician said. The rules of the game are beyond our comprehension, but we do see their scores changing. I don't care about a score, Bink cried. What's the point? What's the point in life? Humphrey asked in return. To grow, to improve, to do something useful, Bink said. Not to play games with concepts. You see it that way because you are a man, not a demon. These entities are incapable of growth or improvement. But what about all their numbers, their enlargements of velocity or viscosity? Oh, I thought you understood, the magician said. Those are not expansions of demon intellect or power, but of status. Demons don't grow. They are already all-powerful. There is nothing that any of them could conceive of that each could not possess. Nothing any one of them could not accomplish. So they can't improve or do anything useful by our definition, for they are already absolute. Thus, there is no inherent denial, no challenge. No challenge? Doesn't that get boring? In 1 billion years, it gets 1 billion times more boring, the magician agreed. So the demons play games? Bink asked incredulously. What better way to pass time and recover interest in existence? Since they have no actual limitations, they accept voluntary ones. The excitement of the artificial challenge replaces the boredom of reality. Well, maybe, Bink said doubtfully. But what has this to do with us? The demon, Xanth, is paying a penalty for failing to complete a formula application within the round, Humphrey said. He has to remain in inertia, in isolation, until released. Bink stood still, so as not to intercept any more thoughts. I don't see any chains to hold him. As for being alone, there are lots of creatures here. No chains could hold him, since he is omnipotent. He plays the game by its rules, and of course we don't count as company. Nothing in all the land of Xanth does. We're vermin, not demons. But, Bink grabbed for meaning and could not hold it. You said this demon was the source of magic. I did indeed. The demon Xanth has been confined here over 1,000 years. From his body has leaked a trace amount of magic, infusing the surrounding material. Hardly enough for him to notice. Just a natural emanation of his presence, much as our own bodies give off heat. Bink found this as fantastic as the demon's vortex thoughts. 1,000 years? Leakage of magic? In that time, even a small leak can amount to a fair amount. At least it might seem so to vermin, the magician assured him. All the magic of the land of Xanth derives from this effect, and all of it together would not make up a single letter of the demon's formula. But even if all this is so, why did the brain coral try to prevent me from learning this? The coral has nothing against you personally, Bink. I think it rather respects your determination. It is against anybody learning the truth, because anyone who encounters the demon Xanth might be tempted to release him. How could a mere person, release such an entity? You said the demon only remains by choice. Humphrey shook his head. What is choice to an omnipotent? He remains here at the dictate of the game. That is quite a different matter. But he only plays the game for entertainment. He can quit any time. The game is valid only so long as its rules are honored. After investing over 1,000 years in this aspect of it, and being so close to success within the rules, why should he abridge it now? Bink shook his head. This makes little sense to me. I would not torture myself in such fashion. Yet a thread of doubt tugged at the corner of his mind. He was torturing himself about the nymph Jewel, honoring the human convention of his marriage to Chameleon. That, to a demon, might seem nonsensical. Humphrey merely looked at him, understanding some of what was passing through his mind. Very well, Bink said, returning to the main point. The coral did not want me to know about the demon, because I might release him. How could I release an all-powerful creature who does not want to be released? Oh. Xanth wants to be released, I am sure. It is merely necessary that protocol be followed. You could do it simply by addressing the demon and saying, Xanth, I free you. Anybody can do it, except the demon himself. But we don't count on its terms. We're nothings, vermin. I did not create the rules. I only interpret them. Though the comprehension gleaned over centuries by the brain coral. The magician said, spreading his hands. Obviously, our interpretation is inadequate, but I conjecture that just as we two might make a bet on whether a given mote of dust might settle nearer me or you, the demons bet on whether vermin will say certain words on certain occasions. It does lend a certain entertaining randomness to the proceedings. With all that power, why doesn't Xanth cause one of us to do it then? That would be the same thing as doing it himself. It would constitute cheating. By the rules of the game, he is bound to remain without influencing any other creature on his behalf, much as we would not permit each other to blow on that mote of dust. It is not a matter of power, but of convention. The demon knows matter of power, the demon knows everything that is going on here, including this conversation between us. But the moment he interferes, he forfeits the point. So he watches and waits, doing nothing except thinking, Bink said, feeling nervous about the scrutiny of the demon. If Xanth were reading Bink's thoughts while Bink was reading Xanth's thoughts, especially in the case of that she-male memory. Ouch. Thinking is permissible. It is another inherent function like his colossal magic. He has not sought to influence us by his thoughts. We have intercepted them on our own initiative. The coral, being closest to the demon for this millennium, has intercepted more of Xanth's magic and thought than any other native creature, so understands him less imperfectly than any other vermin. Thus, the brain coral has become the guardian of the demon, and jealously prevents anyone else from achieving similar magic or information, Bink exclaimed. No, it has been a necessary and tedious chore that the coral would gladly have given up centuries ago. The coral's dearest wish is to inhabit a mortal body, to live and love and hate and reproduce and die as we do. But it cannot, lest the demon be released. The coral has the longevity of the demon without his power. It is an inviolable situation. You mean the demon Xanth would have been freed hundreds of years ago, but for the interference of the coral? True, the magician said. Of all the nerve! And the demon tolerates this? The demon tolerates this, lest he forfeit the point. Well, I consider this an egregious violation of the demon's civil rights, and I'm going to correct that right now, Bink exclaimed with righteous wrath, but he hesitated. What does the coral gain by keeping the demon chained? I don't know for certain, but I can conjecture, Humphrey said. It is not for itself it does this, but to maintain the status quo. Think, Bink. What would be the consequence of the demon's release? Bink thought. I suppose he would just return to his game. And what of us? Well, the brain coral might be in trouble. I know I would be upset if someone had balked me for centuries, but the coral must have known the risk before it meddled. It did. The demon lacks human emotion. He accepts the coral's interference as part of the natural hazard of the game. He will not seek revenge. Still, there could be a consequence. If Xanth lacks human emotion, Bink said slowly, what would stop him from carelessly destroying us all? It would be one dispassionate, even sensible way of ensuring that he would not be trapped here again. Now you are beginning to comprehend the coral's concern, Humphrey said. Our lives may hang in the balance. Even if the demon ignores us and merely goes his way, there will surely be a consequence. I should think so, Bink agreed. If Xanth is the source of all magic in our land, he interrupted himself appalled. It could mean the end of magic. We would become... Exactly, like Mundania, Humphrey concluded. Perhaps it would not happen right away. It might take a while for the accumulated magic of 1,000 years to fade, or the loss might be instantaneous and absolute. We just don't know. But surely there would be a disaster of great or lesser magnitude. Now at last you understand the burden the coral has borne alone. The coral has saved our land from a fate worse than destruction. But maybe the demon wouldn't go, Bink said. Maybe he likes it here. Would you care to gamble your way of life on that assumption? No? Do you still condemn the coral for opposing you? No. I suppose I would have done the same in its place. Then you will depart without freeing the demon? I'm not sure, Bink said. I agreed to listen to the coral's rationale. I have done so, but I must decide for myself what is right. There is a question. When the whole of our land's welfare is at stake. Yes, the demon's welfare is also at stake. But all this is just a game to Xanth. It is life to us. Yes, Bink agreed, non-committally. The magician saw that argument was useless. This is the great gamble we did not wish to take, the gamble of the outcome of an individual crisis of conscience. It rests in your hands, the future of our society. Bink knew this was true. Nothing Humphrey or the brain coral might try could affect him before he uttered the words to free the demon. He could ponder a second, or an hour, or a year, as he chose, free of duress. He did not want to make a mistake. Grundy, Bink said, and the golem ran up to him, not affected by the thought vortices. Do you wish to free the demon Xanth? I can't make decisions like that, Grundy protested. I'm only clay and string, a creature of magic. Like the demon himself, Bink said. You're non-human, not quite alive. You might be construed as a miniature demon. I thought you might have an insight. Grundy paced the cave floor seriously. My job is translation. I may not experience the emotion you do, but I have an awful clear notion of the demon. He is like me, as a dragon is to a nickelpede. I can tell you this, he is without conscience or compassion. He plays his game rigorously by its rules, but if you free him, you will have no thanks from him and no reward. In fact, that would be cheating on his part to proffer you any advantage for your service to him, for that might influence you. But even if reward were legitimate, he wouldn't do it. He'd as soon step on you as smell you. He is like you, Bink repeated, as you were before you began to change. Now you're halfway real. You care somewhat. I am now an imperfect golem, Xanth is a perfect demon. For me, humanization is a step up. For him, it would be a fall from grace. He is not your kind. Yet I am not considered with kind or thanks, but with justice, Bink said. Is it right that the demon be freed? By his logic, you would be an utter fool to free him. The magician, standing apart, nodded agreement. Jewel, Bink said. The nymph looked up, smelling of old bones. The demon frightens me worse than anything, she said. His magic. With the blink of one eye, he could click us all out of existence. You would not free him then? Oh, Bink, I never would. She hesitated prettily. I know you took the potion, so this is unfair, but I'm so afraid of what that demon might do. I'd do anything for you if only you didn't free him. Again, the good magician nodded. Nymphs were fairly simple, direct creatures, unfettered by complex overlays of conscience or social strategy. A real woman might feel the same way Jewel did, but she would express herself with far more subtlety, proffering a superficially convincing rationale. The nymph had named her price. So the logical and the emotional advisors both warned against releasing the demon Xanth. Yet Bink remained uncertain. Something about this huge, super magical, game-playing entity. And he had it. Honor. Within the demon's framework, the demon was honorable. He never breached the code of the game, not in its slightest detail, though there were none of his kind present to observe, and had not been for 1,000 years. Integrity beyond human capacity. Was he to be penalized for this? I respect you, Bink said at last to Humphrey, and I respect the motive of the brain coral. He turned to the golem. I think you ought to have your chance to achieve full reality. And to the nymph. And I love you, Jewel. He paused. But I would have respect for nothing and love for nothing if I did not respect and love justice. If I let personal attachments and desires prevail over my basic integrity of purpose, I would lose my claim to distinction as a moral creature. I must do what I think is right. The others did not respond. They only looked at him. The problem is, Bink continued after a moment, I'm not certain what is right. The rationale of the demon Xanth is so complex, and the consequence of the loss of magic to our world is so great. Where is right and wrong? He paused again. I wish I had Chester here to share his emotion and reason with me. You can recover the centaur, Humphrey said. The waters of the coral lake do not kill, they preserve. He is suspended in brine, unable to escape, but alive. The coral cannot release him. That brine preserves it similarly. But you, if you save the magic of our land, you can draw on the phenomenal power of this region and draw him forth. You offer another temptation of personal attachment, Bink said. I cannot let it influence me. For now, he realized that he had not yet won the battle against the brain coral. He had prevailed physically, but intellectually the issue remained in doubt. How could he be sure the decision he made was his own? Then he had a bright notion. Argue the other case, magician. Tell me why I should free the demon. Startled, Humphrey demurred. You should not free the demon. So you believe. So the coral believes. I cannot tell whether that belief is really yours or merely a function of the will of your master. So now you argue the opposite case, and I'll argue the case for leaving him chained. Maybe that way the truth will emerge. You are something of a demon yourself, Humphrey muttered. Now, I submit that these friends of mine are more important than an impersonal demon, Bink said. I don't know what's right for Xanth, but I do know that my friends deserve the best. How can I justify betraying them by freeing the demon? Humphrey looked as if he had swallowed the evil eye, but he came back gamely enough. It is not a question of betrayal, Bink. None of these creatures would ever have experienced magic if it had not been for the presence of the demon. Now, Xanth's period of incarceration has been fulfilled, and he must be released. To do otherwise would be to betray your role in the demon's game. I have no obligation to the demon's game, Bink retorted, getting into the feel of it. Pure chance brought me here. That is the role, that you, as a sapient creature uninfluenced by the demon's will, come by your own initiative or accident of chance to free him. You fought against us all to achieve this point of decision, and won. Are you going to throw it all away now? Yes, if that is best. How can you presume to know what is best for an entity like Xanth? Free him and let him forge his own destiny. At the expense of my friends, my land, and my love? Justice is absolute. You cannot weigh personal factors against it. Justice is not absolute. It depends on the situation. When there is right and wrong on both sides of the scale, the preponderance... You cannot weigh rights and wrongs on a scale, Bink, Humphrey said, becoming passionate in his role as demon's advocate. Now Bink was sure it was the good magician speaking, not the brain coral. The enemy had had to free Humphrey, at least to this extent, to allow him to play the game of the moment. The magician's mind and emotion had not been erased. And that was part of what Bink had needed to know. Right and wrong are not to be found in things or histories, and cannot be properly defined in either human or demon terms. They are merely aspects of viewpoint. The question is whether the demon should be allowed to pursue his quest in his own fashion. He is pursuing it in his own fashion, Bink said. If I don't free him, that's according to the rules of his game too. I have no obligation. The demon's honor compels him to obey a structure no man would tolerate, Humphrey said. It is not surprising that your own honor is inferior to that perfect standard. Bink felt as if he had been smashed by a forest-blasting curse. The magician was a devastating infighter, even in a cause he opposed. Except that this could be the magician's real position, that the coral was forced to allow him to argue. My honor compels me to follow the code of my kind, imperfect as that may be. Humphrey spread his hands. I cannot debate that. The only real war between good and evil is within the soul of yourself, whoever you are. If you are a man, you must act as a man. Yes, Bink agreed, and my code says... He paused, amazed and mortified. It says I cannot let a living, feeling creature suffer because of my inaction. It doesn't matter that the demon would not free me were our positions reversed. I am not a demon and shall not act like one. It only matters that a man does not stand by and allow a wrong he perceives to continue. Not when he can so readily correct it. Oh, Bink, Jewel cried, smelling of mirth. Don't do it! He looked at her again, so lovely even in her apprehension, yet so fallible. Chameleon would have endorsed his decision, not because she wished to please him, but because she was a human being who believed, as he did, in doing the right thing. Yet though Jewel, like all nymphs, lacked an overriding social conscience. She was as good a person as her state permitted. I love you, Jewel. I know this is just another thing the coral did to stop me, but, well, if I hadn't taken that potion, and if I weren't already married, it would have been awfully easy to love you anyway. I don't suppose it makes you feel any better to know that I am also risking my wife, and my unborn baby, and my parents, and all else I hold dear. But I must do what I must do. You utter fool, Grundy exclaimed. If I were real, I'd snatch up the nymph, and to hell with the demon. You'll get no reward from Xanth. I know, Bink said. I'll get no thanks from anyone. Then he addressed the huge demon face. I free you, Xanth, he said. That's it for this week. We will see you guys next week with Chapter 13.